Hey, David Brewster here, New Brewster's Millions of Rants, and this is Get on the Good Foot, and this is actually my 100th rant episode, so I wanted to make sure I put this together before Christmas and New Year's get here, because I typically do a Happy New Year episode, around New Year's Eve. But this episode's going to basically address something I have received questions and comments about, and that's the fact that a few years ago I switched legs. I used to have the guitar resting on my right leg. A couple years ago I switched to my left leg. I haven't really talked about it as far as what I've discovered or explored, with a different leg. But there are some reasons why I made this switch, and I guess this, brings up an important question. How do you sit with the guitar while you're playing? So for me personally, the reason I made the switch, or at least part of the reason why I made the switch, is because of Alan Haldsworth. And I actually was becoming really obsessed with Alan's music, which I've been obsessed with Alan for a long time. But I was studying and working on some Alan Holdsworth, actually created some lessons here on my channel. And in the preparation that was leading to my own kind of interest and inspiration, and then eventually it turned into a chord play, a soloing secrets episode, and some other episodes here on the channel. And there are other guitarists that are notoriously known for stretching. Of course, Eddie Van Halen and Vi and Buckethead, and there's tons of players that are stretchy. But definitely, historically speaking, Alan Haldsworth is one of the most respected guitarists as far as his technique, because he could seemingly stretch further than almost anybody. And that's a big reason why, because definitely, having the guitar on your left leg, it does seem like you're able to reach and stretch a little bit further. And I did notice when I had the guitar on my right leg, when a certain stretchy chord or a stretchy lick or something would show up, the first thing I would do is bounce to my other leg. And I've done that for years, noticing like, hey, why do I switch when I need to stretch? And then over the years, I've just kind of thought about it and refined it. A couple years ago, I decided to make the full switch and just see what happens. And I have noticed like the guitar is a little harder to play on your left leg, but definitely for stretching and other things on the guitar, it's much easier than it is when it's on your right leg. With my left leg in use, I do notice like I sit a little bit more straight. It seems like my posture is a little bit better. I mean, I could be wrong, but definitely, if you find yourself with like back pain or neck pain, shoulder pain after playing like for an hour or two, it might be because of your posture. Maybe you're sitting kind of in a weird position or something. So definitely, your body will let you know, like if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, you're gonna feel it somewhere, your neck, your shoulder, your back, something. Now, another thing I noticed sitting the guitar on my left leg, it's very similar to how the guitar is positioned when I stand, because when I'm standing, I don't have the guitar, kind of cocked off to the side. I'm definitely standing with the guitar like that, almost like it's seated, on my left leg like that, just like that. Standing and then sitting down. Something to think about. Now to show you I went the extra mile for this video, I basically grabbed a screenshot of an early video when the guitar was on my right leg, and then I grabbed a screenshot from my most recent video before this, the Hendrix rant, and just to show you kind of the difference between my posture and how I was seated. I mean, it's not real bad. I mean, I wasn't like bent over, like a hunchback or whatever on my right leg, but I definitely can tell like a difference. So check this out. Wait, that was the wrong photo. Once again, thank you, Adrian, for making that. But here's the actual photo, kind of side by side. Old and then most recent. Now, as far as the stretch benefit to having the guitar on your left leg, I'm actually going to walk through kind of a little historic history lesson of my stretches that I encountered, maybe back when I was a teenager or just starting to play. And that basically, I even remember way back then, kind of sampling certain things on different legs. Like sometimes I'd try it on my right leg and then switch to left to just see which one, felt more comfortable or easy. And one of the first big stretches I remember making as a teenager was like the boogie blues, like rhythm stretch, like a C5 to a C6 right there. I was probably working on Great Whites, once bitten, twice shy, like the riff. And for some reason, as a teenager, I learned it by ear and I put it right there. not realizing you could relocate it right there, and it's a little closer together and a little easier. You don't have to stretch quite so far right there. But in that riff and in that song, he actually stretches an extra fret to that implied C7 right there. And I remember that stretch, it felt like it was killing my pinky, you know, when I was a teenager, like, oh my gosh. And I do remember moving the guitar to my left leg to make that stretch happen, because that was really hard. And then I definitely remember kind of investigating what I was doing. And around the same time, I was working on Spanish Fly by Van Halen. And I noticed something, like that stretch, you know, the 5 chord to the 6 chord. If we move that to D right there. Well, right there, when you get up to that 9th fret, that's actually the same stretch that you're using for the tap section in Spanish Fly, right there. Of course, Eddie goes, you know, down an extra fret too, so it's even stretchier. And then he moves down here. So definitely that's a stretch workout, big time. But I definitely remember making that connection between the Boogie Blues riff to the Spanish Fly stretch. And then it felt like I was off and running not too long after that. At another time in my early years, I definitely remember moving my guitar from my right leg to my left to accommodate these stretchy chords. And that was working on music from The Police and Andy Summers. And Message in a Bottle, you know, those kind of sus2 shapes. Which that's definitely stretchy. But that wasn't as hard as Every Breath You Take, I definitely remember. Because, you know, with Message in a Bottle, you know, the chords and the notes of the chords really aren't sustained or ringing. You know, not like that. It's separate, right? So you can kind of almost roll your way through it. You know, and you don't actually have to make that giant stretch. You know, as soon as you play one note, you're moving on to the next note. And I've seen people kind of piece that part together like that, even though I do typically stretch out for that. But with Every Breath You Take, that was a totally different, you know, situation, because there Andy's playing, you know, like an A add 9 right there. And it's held down, and those notes are sustained. You can kind of hear him like palm muting and picking through it, but the notes, as soon as he plays it, are still ringing, right? So you have to hold that down. Now that one's bad enough, but this one's definitely a killer. You know, that F sharp minor add 9. That's a wrist killer right there. And that would be really hard to play with the guitar on your right leg. If you're going to attempt to do that right now at home, be careful, because that could definitely destroy something in your wrist or your forearm. That's definitely a very, you know, intimidating chord right there. Now, speaking of stretchy and difficult chords, I definitely remember working on Satriani's Always With Me, Always With You, and that nasty, you know, B add 11 right there. I know the first time I saw that chord, like in the transcription book, I was like, what am I supposed to do? I thought it was a typo or something. I was like, what? But then I slowly remember sitting there, moving the guitar to my left leg, you know, making that chord happen. I've definitely seen people use their thumb to make that work, you know, like that. But don't be afraid to make that stretch, as long as you're not hurting yourself, obviously. But don't be afraid to make that stretch. And it might be something you have to kind of gradually, you know, kind of stretch your finger back or something like that, really to accommodate that giant reach. So it does seem like there are a lot of chords that require a big stretch. A lot of the add chords, add 9, add 11 chords seem to have big stretches in them. And you can usually tell, like, just by hearing it. It's like, okay, that sounds like all the notes are really close together, and then you hear another chord, and it's like, no, those sound like they're spread apart. And think of, like this. You know, there's an A minor add 9 right there. You know, definitely a beautiful chord. It also has a nasty stretch right there, you can see. And if you think back to what we talked about earlier, like that Boogie Blues, and I moved it to D, and then I was kind of measuring, like, you know, how far to stretch for Spanish Fly. That's the same stretch, but now we're doing it like that. And we're barring, you know, with that index finger back there. So it is a little trickier, I think, because we're barring, and even though it's the same distance, but that's hard. Now, I did make that into an exercise to help viewers out there if you want to stretch, something like this. I'm just going to hybrid pick through it. right there you can see we're starting with A minor. And then that A goes back to G, back to A minor. And then right there, grab that B for the minor add 9. Then stretch to C. So there's a unison happening right there, back to that B note, back to the A, back to the G. And then right there, reach over and grab F sharp on the A string, and then the picking pattern changes. And then change that F sharp to F natural. You know, and those kind of exercises, it's just kind of, you know, you can go really slow and just walk through it. You know, and definitely you can start flying through it too. But those kind of workouts are good for kind of getting used to stretching. Definitely if you're kind of working on maybe moving the guitar to a different leg. You know, find some situations like that that will help you. That's going to wrap this episode of Brewster's Millions of Rants with my 100th rant. Get on the good foot. And I definitely felt like this was an important, you know, topic or subject to kind of address, because I have lots of students over the years ask, like, should I use my right leg or left leg, or how should I hold the pick? You know, how should I have my hand for bar chords or stretching, or whatever questions might come my way. And with this, it definitely is something you might want to kind of play around with. And it also depends on you. You know, like if you're very tall, or if you're very short, or very skinny, or not so skinny. You know, if you have a lot of lap, or if you don't have very much lap as far as, you know, where you can put your guitar down. If you don't really stretch that much, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe you don't really stretch beyond like a power chord shape or something. And then if you find yourself stretching a lot, or if you get into somebody like Holdsworth or whoever, you might actually want to make the switch just to accommodate all the extra stretching and everything. Because it is noticeably very hard to stretch very far on your right leg. Check it out for yourself at home, and be careful. I can't stress that enough. Don't hurt yourself. And, you know, definitely it seems like there's a million different variables and little different ways of doing things on the guitar. And the way you sit with the guitar is just, once again, like another variable. You know, it does kind of make a difference. As far as stretching and just the way it feels when you play and grab your guitar. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Net Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you, and happy holidays.